Okay guys, welcome to the video. This is going to be an instructional video on how to get the emulators in this PS3 going and how to start playing the games. The video on the screen is moving a little bit quick because that video was way too long, so I'm making it move a lot faster. So sometimes what I'm saying won't match what's on the screen, but you'll figure it out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with RetroArch. RetroArch plays all the old school consoles, and it has those emulators in them. Right here, you're seeing the load content, which is what it's pointing to. It says Main 2003. You're pretty much going to use everything. Well, the core and the third load content are the ones you're going to use the most. Okay, the core is another name for console. So when you see the word core, just understand that that's actually just another name for the emulator / console. Okay. On here, when you go to core, you'll see you have all the emulators listed on here. Okay. We're going to go ahead and I think it's going to go to NES, and you pick NES, which is the Netopia one, and you see that the fourth line down where it says load content now says Netopia. It also says Netopia on the bottom left corner, so that's how you know what emulator you're on. So Netopia is for NES, okay, and the folders have already been set. So when you're ready to play, just go to load content, the third load content line, and you'll see the games for NES will pop up. So on here we picked Donkey Kong, and the game loads really quick. Okay, so everything works pretty smooth. So on here we're going to show you next how to use a save state, and the save states are pretty neat. There's I think there's like 999 save states, and there might be more than that. Pretty much each save state is a save. So you start at save state 0. I believe it goes up to 999, and all you do is you just have to hit L3 and R3 together. The thumb buttons, press them both in at the same time, and you'll get the screen to pop up. And the game also pauses. Go ahead and pick save state, and just leave it at save state 0, and now he died. Now you got to go all the way back to the beginning, but if you go to load state and it says 0, since we saved it at 0, notice how it started right from where we left off. So now we're going to make it up a little bit further, and we're going to go to save state. We're just going to override the last save, so we're going to leave it at 0. And it's a good thing because I died. But now we can go into load state, and it's at 0, and see, it picks up right there. You don't have to worry about starting all over. So this is great for bosses. This is great for levels that are hard to get by. Just keep saving it, and then when you die, it'll just pick up where it left off. You don't have to start all the way back at the beginning of the level. You can have a bunch of different games, as you see there. I don't know if you can see it. I'm moving the numbers. You can have different games on different numbers, even different games that are on different systems on different numbers. So we put Donkey Kong at save state 0. You can have Final Fantasy 2 from Super NES on save state 1. You can have Outrun from Genesis on save state 3. You can have multiple save states for one game. So Donkey Kong, you can have save state 0, 1, 2, 3. You don't even have to start with 0. You can go straight to number 10 or number 100 or 150, however you want. So these save states are awesome because they pick up right exactly where you left off. And I think there'll be another demonstration on here. I think here we're going to save it to save state 7 or something like that. Okay. But anyway, you get the idea. That's how you use save states. So in RetroArch, save state works the same no matter what console you're on. Okay. Now when you press, you can go into settings. When you press L3 and R3, or L3 and R3 together, when you press them down, you can go into settings, and then you go into video, and then go into aspect ratio. And you can see there's a lot of predetermined aspect ratios for you that are set up so that you can pick whatever one you're more comfortable with and looks better on your TV. Pretty much here, we're not going to get into detail. There's way too much about RetroArch that just take up too much time. So I find that settings is and the aspect ratio is the one you're probably going to use the most. And I usually use the 5:4 aspect ratio, although 4:3 works pretty well as well. So here we're going to go back into load content, okay, and then we'll just pick another game. We pick Double Dragon 2, and it literally changes really quick. I know it looks fast because the video is going by really quick, but these games actually change pretty quickly. Sometimes they change in just 1 or 2 seconds. It hardly ever takes more than 2 seconds. The buttons configuration on RetroArch just depends on the console that you're using. So you'll need to figure it out. The select button, the start button, and which one of the buttons are punch, kick, jump, whatever. Same thing here. You can go into a save state. We use save state 0 for Donkey Kong, and now we use save state 1 for Double Dragon. If you try loading save state 0, since it belonged to Donkey Kong, and you try loading it here, it's going to give you an error. You won't be able to load it. You have to be in that game. So the only downside is that you have to keep track, written down somewhere, what games are on what number of save state. Now we went ahead and hit L3 and R3, and the menu will come up. Go to Core, and when you go to Core, we're going to change it, and we're going to pick Genesis. So pick the Genesis. Scroll down to the Sega Gen emulator, which is the Gen Plus, and then once that changes over, you can go ahead and go down to the load content line, the third load content, and then we loaded Alex Kidd. And here, same thing, showing you again about the save states and how to use them, because you'll be using that a lot. So just make sure you save as you progress, and your life will be 100% easier. Changing games on the fly is very easy. Once you pick a system, like here we pick Genesis, you can just go to the load content line where it says Genesis, and you can pick anything else, any other game, and it'll load real quick. Hit L3 and R3 again, and then go to Core, and pick the SNES emulator. Scroll down, and then once the screen changes, go to the load content line, which is really load game, and then go ahead and load a game. Here we loaded, I think, Battletoads and Double Dragon. And again, on that content line, you'll see it'll say SNES, and on the bottom left-hand corner, and that's how you know you're in the SNES console. So right here, you get to see all the emulators that are installed, but there are only games loaded for SNES, Genesis, the NES, the Sega Master System, and TurboGrafx 16. And right here, we switched over to TurboGrafx 16, which is, I believe it says like PC Engine or PCE Engine. And then the games will pop up when you pick the load content line. Now, about MAME, there are 2 MAMEs on this system. Okay, RetroArch uses MAME 2003. So we went ahead and loaded the MAME emulator. Okay, the MAME 2003 emulator. There are MAME games in the 2003 folder. There's not very many. There's a lot more in the main folder, but that's played somewhere else, and we'll go over that later. So right here is MAME game 2003, WrestleFest. Normally the older games, the games from like the mid to early 90s and 80s, usually play on MAME 2003. But you'll just have to test it. If you have any kind of familiarity with MAME games, you know that the MAME ROMs are sometimes a pain in the butt to find one that's working. The good thing about this is that you can, with the MAME 2003, there's little hidden things. I think you either have to hit the L2, R2 button at the same time, or select and start at the same time, and a little screen will pop up with like dip switches that'll allow you to do things like get more lives, maybe make yourself invincible. So it works kind of like the one on your PC, if you're familiar. See, and here's a little screen. It looks just like the one on your PC. And by the way, when you start a main game in 2003 and it says press OK to continue, you have to hit left and right on the D-pad on your controller. And when you hit left and then right, it'll say OK. So here we're changing the difficulty of the game, where we add the players, take away players. There's just a bunch of stuff you can do. Now, these little options change depending on which game you're playing. So you're not going to have the same options in every game. And so as you can see, they work just fine. So that's MAME 2003. And again, it's a matter of trial and error. Okay, so now the only thing I want to say about RetroArch is the Sega Master System games. When you pick the Sega Genesis emulator, it will also play Sega Master System games. Okay, but the thing is, you have to change the folder because it's one emulator that plays all the Sega consoles. You have to change the path, and to do that, once you start up the Genesis Plus emulator, then you'll go into settings, and then you'll go into the path. Okay, you're going to set the path, and then it'll let you choose your directory, and you'll just your goal is to get to the root directory, the dev HDD0, and then you're going to pick Super ROMs folder, and then you'll pick the Sega Master System folder. Then when you want to go back to Genesis, you'll go to settings, HDD0, Super ROMs, and then pick the Genesis folder. You'll see it there, and then you'll play the Genesis games. That's the only thing you have to do. The only time you have to switch folders. It's just for the Sega emulator, because it plays all the systems in one emulator, and you can't have multiple folder paths. So by default, I put the Genesis one. If you want to change it to Sega Master System, just follow the instructions. Okay, so now we started the FB Alpha Retro Loader. So you can quit RetroArch and then start up FB Alpha RL. FB Alpha RL plays the more up-to-date main games. Okay, and they'll also play like Neo Geo and things like that. So when you look on the screen here, you're going to notice on your game list, you're going to have some games that look like they repeat. It'll say USA, it'll say Euro. Sometimes you have a zip file, and that zip requires also another parent file in order for it to work. So you have to have both files in there. Usually, if you pick one or the other, they'll both work. Most of the time. So if you see the Euro version will work. If you pick the USA version, the USA version will work. But sometimes you will see BIOS in there. You'll see something called like Neo Geo BIOS or Naomi BIOS. Those are not playable. You won't see a window on the right hand side that'll show an example of the game. It'll just show something totally different. So here we pick Metal Slug 4, and I believe here you hit select and start at the same time, or again you hit L2 and R2 at the same time, and you get a little cheat screen that pops up, and you can add, in this case we added invincibility, infinite ammo, and all that stuff. Again, the cheats are not going to be the same, it just depends on the game, but here I believe it's the select and start button together, or it's L2, R2. Since FB Alpha RL works off of RetroArch, when you press L3 and R3 together, the two thumb buttons in, you're going to see the RetroArch, which you call it, pop up. So, except that some of your options will be a little bit more restrictive than you would if you would have, played it through RetroArch. But pretty much you'll see all the games that are installed, and that's about it. Just pick the game you want, and to install a game into this folder, it's HDD, Super ROMs, and then pick MAME, not MAME 2003, and insert the game through there. And that's pretty much it. We'll see you on the next video.